and welcome to the GeoLens Show. This is a special edition, and I'm Josette. Today is International Women's Day, a moment recognized around the world to celebrate women and the contributions they continue to make in every sphere of society. Across the world today, women are coming together in many different ways. In some places, they step into the streets to demand rights, equality, and recognition. In others, women gather wearing matching outfits, symbols of solidarity, unity, and pride. As a woman myself, I always find this day meaningful. It's a moment to celebrate one another, to honor the women who came before us, and to recognize those who continue to inspire us, whether they are still with us or remembered through the legacy they left behind. But International Women's Day did not begin as a celebration, it began as a movement. You see, more than a century ago, women workers organized and demanded better working conditions, fair wages, and the right to vote. What began as labor protests gradually grew into a global movement for women's rights and equality. To explore how these ideas take shape in everyday life, I am joined by three remarkable women whose work reflects the spirit of this year's International Women's Day: rights, justice, and action. We have Hana Baba, journalist and storyteller whose work amplifies the voices and experiences of the African diaspora. We have Marie-José Sodji, an entrepreneur here in California who has created a space where women connect, express themselves, and celebrate culture. And Sandrine Raphael, a respiratory therapist working on the front lines of healthcare and contributing every day to the well being of diverse communities. Three different paths, three different professions, three different women, but each of them is shaping conversation and creating impact. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm so happy to have you on this special day. So, Hannah, before we dive into the conversation, let's start with you. Tell us a little about your journey, what led you into journalism, and also who you are and what continues to motivate your commitment to telling these stories.
Well, hi, thank you for having me, Georgia. This is so lovely. And happy International Women's Day to all of
Thank
you
you.
and to all our women around the world, our mamas, our sisters, our daughters, everybody. So I'm originally, my family is from Sudan, and I came to this country as a baby. So I wasn't quite born here, but almost. And I grew up in a Sudanese family. We lived in Indiana, we lived in Texas, we lived in all these places. And then when I was about 11 or 12, we started going to Sudan frequently. And here in the US, in my childhood, storytelling was a big, big, big thing. My mother memorized all of these folk tales and folk stories from her childhood, from her grandmother, and told them to me. And they always were just inspiring and incredible. And I always believed that our folk tales and our fairy tales deserved as much attention as, like Cinderella and Snow White and all of these other stories that we were told. And then I would go on these vacations. They take us to Sudan. And you know how the radio is a big, big deal where we're from. The radio is a lifeline. It's always on in the house. It's where you get your news, your entertainment. You know what the time is in Sudan because of the radio is always on. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with media and the idea of someone just telling you a story in your ear on the radio. We had these radio dramas, like a whole show, and you can imagine the story in your head without any visuals, without anything. And so, when I grew up, in our in our cultures, a lot of the time when you say you want to go into media or film or journalism, our elders don't, they're not down with that a lot of the time because, for them, success and prosperity come from fields like medicine, right? And engineering. And so the expectation is that these are the fields that you'd go into. So I ended up actually going into law. I'm a lawyer by training and my education, but the media bug absolutely bit me and never let me go. And I started, kind of branching out into internships and trainings at the local radio station, at the community radio station, and it drew me more and more. And I was drawn away and away from the law, which to me was just dry, with all respect to lawyers, but it just wasn't for me. And so I turned into, fast forward, a public radio journalist at my public radio station here in San Francisco called KALW. It's an NPR station, part of the NPR network. And I host a news magazine, which is news and culture and interviews. I absolutely love it. I've been doing it for 20 years now. And I don't want to do anything else. I absolutely fell in love.
It's just so interesting. And I can relate actually with everything that you're saying about storytelling in Africa, being a woman and being from there, also wanting to be in the entertainment industry. So I can totally relate. And, what I can tell you is that storytelling shapes how people understand the world. And that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing too. So I'm glad you shared that with us. Now, Marisho, let's come to you. Stories told from within communities often reveal perspectives that are rarely heard in mainstream conversations. You are a businesswoman right here in California, and as a stylist, a hairstylist, I would say, your work is creating something that's like more than a business. I will say it's like you building a community within people around you, within all the women um, around you. So, what led you to start your own business and that kind of business right here in America?
Thank you, George. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to the show. And happy Women's Day to everyone, like Hannah said earlier. I'm going to jump into the subject right away. Actually, I am from Senegal, originally from Senegal, and I lived in America for over 30 years. So, but what brought me into the business I'm doing now is at first, um, hair wasn't my thing, but I knew how to do hair. I learned it from home. Almost we all know how to do hair from home. But I was working at Nordstrom's before, but I knew that I was an entrepreneur. I really always love to sell. I always love to, I'm a people person. I cannot be in a room, locked up, or just in a space doing, any type of work. So I'm always an outside person. I love people. I love to, I just love people. I'm a people person. So when I came here, like I said, I was working at Nordstrom's, but it was inside of me. I knew that this was not something I wanted to do always. It was just a startup and stuff. So I did that for a while, and I had a kid, and I wasn't working with my family duties. So I started thinking, well, anyway, this is not what I want to do. Why don't I just started, advertising myself, since I know how to do hair and stuff like that. I will start with the hair, but I knew that I was not gonna, end with hair. I'm gonna do something else. But anyway, I um, I started advertising myself, talking about what I do. I know how to do hair, and people started coming to my house to do hair. But then, after a little while, the house started becoming a little smaller for me because people started coming, and women, we like the gossip, we like all that. So anyway, I started, having a lot of clients to do hair at home. And I knew all these people, I mean, all these girls that knew how to do hair. I started thinking about just opening a salon, and starting that business. And that's what I did. I one day I was off. I'm like, why don't I go to downtown and see if they have a space for rent, and then see what I can do. And I did that. I went to downtown, and sure enough, there was a business that was for sale. It was a hair salon. Anyway, I called the lady. We talked and everything. So I came down. One day she gave me an appointment. I came down there. We talked and stuff. So I ended up buying that business, and that's how I started the business.
Wow, that's amazing and so inspiring. What I like is how your story started simple. Well, entrepreneurship often begins with something simple, an idea, a need, sometimes frustration, and it grows from there. And I'm glad you're doing what you're doing because I think, I don't know about you ladies, but I get to take advantage of Marie's business because
Thank you. Thank you.
um, your path is different. And it's something that I can relate to, but in a different way. Healthcare. Um, can you share with us what led you to choose a career in healthcare? And also tell us who you are.
Yeah, so my name is Sandrine Raphael, and I live in California. I know Marie-Jo very well, Georgette. I know when I was in the house and all that. I remember I was there actually. So I went to pharmacy school at the beginning. My dad is from the Ivory Coast. My mom is from France. I was born in France. My dad eventually separated, and I lived with my dad in Ivory Coast. And I started pharmacy school there. Eventually, I went again to see my mom, so I did a year again also in France. And after that, dating and all that, I decided to come to the US. So that's how I met Marie-Jo also. Coming here, the challenges of coming here, going back to school. I always had in my heart that I wanted to go back and I wanted to finish school. I wanted to go back. There were a lot of challenges. But eventually I went back to community college and all that. And my heart was still, again, going to pharmacy school. I started doing my pre-rec and all that. And then eventually I was on the waiting list, I think. And at the school where I was, they had something regarding respiratory care. And I had never heard of that. And I'm like, what is respiratory care? I know pharmacy, dentist, medicine, this and that. What's respiratory care? So I went in there, and then they started talking about it. And I realized that I had all the prerequisites. I'm like, let me just apply. And then I applied. I was accepted at Georgia State University. So it was a bachelor program in health sciences and respiratory care. So eventually that's what I did. And meanwhile, of course, I was married. I had already one or a couple of kids, I think, by then. So, but originally it was pharmacy. Even when I was in Ivory Coast, I worked in a pharmacy. When I was in the US here, I worked as a pharmacy technician in a pharmacy as well, while trying to do my classes and all that. But eventually, I'm still in healthcare. I'm in respiratory care, and I like it. It's different. So that's basically my journey in healthcare, or how I got to healthcare. Mm-hmm.
Very nice, Sandrine. Well, healthcare is one of those professions where skill and trust meet every single day. You have some stories, and I'm sure we'll dive into that later. But for many communities, healthcare professionals like yourself are not only caregivers but also sources of reassurance and also guidance. We do research in healthcare, so when we meet patients, they tell us stories that when they are in hospitals. So thank you. Listening to these journeys, something important becomes clear. See, their stories did not begin when they arrived in the United States. Each of these women carried with them skills, knowledge, and values shaped by their experiences back home. For Hannah, storytelling grew from her connection to Sudan, her home country. For Marie Jose Sodji, braiding hair, a skill many girls learned growing up in Senegal, became a pathway to entrepreneurship and community building. And for Sandrine Raphael, a journey that began in pharmacy in Cote d'Ivoire continued in the United States as she became a respiratory therapist. So migration did not erase their identities, it expanded them. Now, Marisho, earlier you were talking about starting your business, okay? Um, and we know that starting a business often comes with many challenges. Now, as an immigrant woman, building your entrepreneurial path in the United States, can you share with us the obstacle you faced and what helped you keep moving forward?
Okay. Thank you for the question. I will not say that it was easy at first, but what kept me going and kept me in the business is the people, the women, the stories, the familiarities, the love, all that kept me in the business. I mean, it got to a point where, um, people that I met through the business became like my family. It was like family to me, and it is still family to me. Like I met Hannah through, my business, and we like family. When I look at the kids, they like my children. And sometimes I even take the mama's role, and they let me, they know.
Gladly, gladly.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Sometimes I have clients that come and tell me, "Oh, Marie, I'm having problems with, so and so. Can you please help me?" and stuff like that. So I come in there and I do the mama's job. I talk to the kids, and for the most part, they listen to me. They love me. They listen to me. So the people kept me in this business, and they kept me going. They encouraged me, and they even helped me because at some point I was like, I'm thinking about retiring. When I said that, it was a problem. Retiring? Oh no, girl, no, you're not going nowhere. You know what I mean? So the people, the people kept me in the business. Thank you.
That's inspiring. And I think many women in the diaspora have similar journeys, but it takes courage to do what you're doing. You're building something new while navigating, unfamiliar systems.
True.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Hannah, journalism can shape the way people understand an issue. Was there a moment in your career when you realized the impact the stories you tell can have?
Mm. Oh, yes. So there have been many moments, but the ones that stay with me the most are when someone from a community I reported on comes up to me and says, "Thank you. That's our story. You captured it." Or somebody says, "I've never seen or heard myself in media. There's not a lot of reporting about my community." Um, or somebody who says, "That story made me cry because I've never heard that." I remember specifically there was an episode of The Stoop, my podcast, where we really kind of went deep into African diaspora feelings and emotions and the things that we have to deal with as people with feet in two worlds and hearts in two places, right? And there was a lady who left a comment on Apple Podcasts, I think, and she said, "I cried listening to this." She was from Ethiopia, I think, and she was saying, nobody has ever told a story that was so relevant to me. And I think it was about like something about the relationship between Africans and African Americans, something like that. And we went deep, as we do. And she felt it, and I felt it. I felt that there are so many of us, when they hear themselves, when they hear their perspectives, their stories. Marie was on an episode called Coming to America about what we wish we knew before we came to America. And so I went and interviewed so many people about kind of their imagination and their vision of what America was, and then when they actually came and lived, what the reality is, right? And so the whole episode was about that. And Marie, and Marie is a humble woman. She's incredible. She means so much to our family, and not just to the children. When I was at one of my lowest moments, I was doing chemotherapy and my hair was coming out, and Marie was one of my solid rocks that I was able to lean on, right? And making everything easy, and that's okay, we'll just do this with the hair, and we'll just do this, and that smile and that gum in her mouth. She's the gum like nothing's wrong in the world. And it's that spirit, right? Like it's that spirit of community. And to me, Marie and her shop are like a sacred space and a space of comfort. And that's what happens when we come together, as women. And so those are the moments that really, the best impact to me is when somebody tells me something like that, like thank you for covering my community. We don't get to hear ourselves a lot. That story stayed with me because, or I shared this story out because it touched me in a certain way. And so that's, to me, those mean the world.
That's powerful. And thank you for sharing your story and how Marie has been helpful to you and your family. I think one thing to remember is journalism is not just about information. It's also about how we connect people. And so when stories resonate, they often shift the way communities see themselves and also how other people see them.
Right. I'm a big believer in cultural diplomacy, which is basically when people know you, they will care about you. When people hear about a community on the air, or they read about a community it can be a story about anything. I've done stories about food, about our beauty traditions, about a soda that I can only find in Sudan, things like that. And you would think, okay, that's not hard news. It's soft news. It's fluff.
Mhm.
To me, those are the stories, the food, the culture, the dance, those are common, right? Between all of us share these kinds of things, the food and the culture. And so if an audience of whatever 5 million people on NPR hear a story about how my mom makes falafel differently than other cultures, right? It's about falafel, it's about a food, it's
Yes,
a fun story. But that story, it broke a barrier, right? Next time the listener hears Sudan, there's a reference. They know what Sudan is, at least in some way, and they would have heard a woman from Sudan talk about, this is my recipe, and then I do this, and then I do this. Home, when my grandma gave me the recipe and everything. When a listener hears that, they register, okay, Sudan, this is a place, these are the people, they are here. And then you kind of insert secretly or sneakily information, who colonized us, and a little history, a little journalism. You pepper it in between the food story, and voila, like people know a little bit. And so when there's a war, when something happens, they know what Sudan is from that story that they heard a long time ago. That's the effect.
Yeah, so it's basically you teaching them, you bringing communities together. And talking about communities, Sandrine, I'm going to turn to you.
Okay.
You work with communities, right? Closely with your patients. And some of the most critical moments, sometimes you are there, right? You see them when they're struggling. Um, can you share with us how those moments, those people that you meet during those vulnerable moments, how they change who you are as, a woman?
Yeah. So in healthcare, you're right. Sometimes we meet patients at their lowest point. You have to be able to establish a trust. So I specialize in sleep medicine, even though it's respiratory care. So we diagnose sleep disorder, mainly sleep apnea. So whenever we see patients, they come in and all that. So there's a lot of education. There's a lot of education about what's going on. But then also they tell you about themselves. So you kind of establish that trust first, so that with the treatment and all that, everything can work. And they can even accept that. But in doing this, I always, when even I speak with Marie-Jo, I always tell her that even though it's healthcare, more social communication, making sure patients are very comfortable, and eventually we can do the treatment. And it's very effective. Um, so once the patient have that trust with you, they're able to not only accept the treatment, follow with it, and then they relate with you. Basically, they want to come back, and continue. So it's a journey of helping that patient to get better, to heal, to understand what they have, and then to get to the next level. Definitely. Hope it answers the questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that I was curious because usually you don't get to ask that question to people. You just see them going, you're like, oh, they're healthcare workers. This is something they're supposed to do. But I know that, there are times when it's hard just seeing people going through a lot, and you can help, but I'm sure sometimes you just can't do anything about what's going on.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. And then
Yeah.
empathy and again establishing that that relationship, empathize with them, understand where they're coming from and how you can help them from right there when they are. So yes.
Yes. And I guess moments like that remind us how deeply human healthcare really is.
No, it's very important. Remember the COVID situation. We had to go to
Yes.
work. The streets were empty. We were just, we had to go to work. The patients are always there, and in everything we do, whatever specialty, I think if you want to help that person, I think you'll do good. Basically, you're not just there for the
Mhm.
paycheck and all that. We're there to help our patient get better. Um, so I always bring that with me whenever I do, that I encounter any patients. It's men, women, kids, different elderly. You'll be surprised what people go through. But eventually, the communication, the understanding, and then listening and then helping them basically.
Another powerful theme in these stories is culture. Yes, culture. Food, hair, language, and traditions often become bridges between people. They create spaces where trust grows, where belonging takes shape, and where communities support one another. So, for many immigrant women like myself, success becomes collective, lifting others, sharing knowledge, and opening doors to the next generation. Now, Hannah, earlier we were talking about perspectives. From your perspective, who do you think is telling the story of Africa and its diaspora right now?
Hmm. Um, well, what's exciting is that there are more Africans and people in the diaspora telling our own stories now, finally. I've been in this business for 20 years, and it was really a struggle at the beginning. I mean, I would say, up until this podcast boom,
Mhm.
where podcasting, I think, really has democratized the airwaves in a way where it's not journalism and media is not only um, the realm of the big companies anymore, right? It is not just ABC and NBC and CNN and BBC. Like you can be in your home, like we are right now, like you are
Yes.
hosting a show, and it's out in the world. And this, we're doing it. It's happening. And when the podcast boom first started, it was around when we started at the radio station. I've been there for 20 years, but we started a podcast, the Stoop, in 2017, and there were barely anybody, right? The technology wasn't out there really. I could do it because I have a studio that I work in every day, so there were very few, even Black people, Black period, not even Africans from the continent, right?
Mhm.
Few Black people in media. I think the number was in newsrooms at the time. There is this study every year out of I think the University of Southern California um, about diversity in Hollywood, and the numbers were just abysmal for Black people overall. Let alone us Africans who are kind of continental Africans are like even a smaller slice of that. And like I said, our communities, our parents, still the idea of my child going into media over business or law or medicine or pharmacy or a science, uh, it still wasn't happening. This is very new that we're getting into these fields in terms of education and kind of teaching the elders and the older generation that this can be a career that's stable. And so that has changed, which is great. But for a long time, narratives about Africa were shaped from the outside, and they often focused on crisis, right? They only come to us for the war stories and the poverty stories, and the famine stories. But now you're seeing African journalists, podcasters, filmmakers like yourself, and writers telling much more layered stories about everyday life, about creativity, about the tech boom in Africa, about innovation, about education. It's not just the doom and gloom stories that are just so old and so stereotypical. That's thankfully and hopefully an era that's gone and won't come back. But it really is going to depend on more Africans. You can only complain about the narrative. You can't complain about the narrative if you're not at the table and you're not, trying to change it. That's what I tell communities when I go out. If a community tells me, in the media, we're stereotyped and there's no nuance in any coverage of my community, then I turn around and ask them, how many of you are in media? How many of you are willing to let your kids get into media? The best tellers of a story are us. And if we're not going to do that, if we're not willing to do that because of whatever reasons, then how can we complain when somebody else is telling our story and maybe they tell it wrong, or maybe they focus on something, and totally ignore something else. So thankfully, this is changing slowly. And I'm very excited about this time.
You know what? I'm excited too. And that's such an important point. Who's telling our story?
Yeah.
And I think that we need, like you said, we need more like us, because it's about narratives, but we need to tell our own stories.
Because if you're not telling your story, somebody else is.
Yes, and they will make up the stories.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they say what you know better. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But we got to sit down with the aunties and uncles and convince them to let their kids go into journalism. And that's a struggle. I'm telling you, it's a struggle. It's hard. It's hard because it's so deeply entrenched in us that our people that and I can't blame them, because back home those are the occupations that are stable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are successful. Who is the successful one? The doctor, and the engineer. And so it's a hard sell for people to ask people to get into journalism. But I think now that people see the power of it, they're starting to understand.
Yeah, I think it's changing. There's still a lot to do, but it's changing. And I think we have also to play a part in that change by telling our stories.
Yep.
So thank you for telling yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And this is where story becomes powerful. For a long time, the story of Africa was often told from the outside, frequently through crisis, conflict, or struggle. Journalists like Hana Baba represent a new generation, helping shift that narrative. Through storytelling, they highlight the complexity of African identities and diaspora experiences, reminding us that representation shapes how communities are seen, understood, and also valued. In many ways, storytelling itself becomes a form of empowerment. All right, so Marisha, now we are gonna get into the fun part. Beyond beauty, spaces like yours often become places. So your salon, it's like a place of conversation, confidence, and community, like we said
Yes.
earlier. So, how does your work help women feel confident and stay connected to their culture? We're talking about hair right now.
Uh, salons is a very interesting place. You know, it's about beauty, but it's about something else. Actually, it's a safe place where women comes and sometimes open up things that they can't talk with their spouses, questions they have that they don't have no answers, that they can ask their mothers or the elders in their family. They come to a safe place, where they can open up and tell their story or ask questions. So that's where the gossip happens. Let me put it that way. So it's gossip, gossip, gossip.
Marie knows too much about me and my family and my in-laws and everybody.
That's right. That's right. That's where everything happened. Sometimes when women are hurting in their homes, they don't have a place to express themselves and share with people and get advice from other women. So mostly it happens in salons. So, and then two, what I like is, we have the gossipers in the salon, but then we have the wise women in the salon too. Sometimes when we start going overboard, you're going to find somebody that will always bring us back to reality and then give the right advice. But it's a place where you learn a lot. We learn from each other and we get advice, we get counsel. And I just like the spirit in the right salon, because there are some salons that have a lot of strife, but if you go to the right place, definitely that's the place where you can open up and hear from other women and have good advice from other women. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we know hair has always carried cultural meaning. Like, we're talking about identity. Look at me with my braid, right? I'm
Right,
speaking the
right.
language now, right? And then
Right.
also there's the other part of creativity.
Mhm.
We also sometimes it's like more than that. We can even talk about resistance, right?
Yes.
It's powerful. I feel like when we talk about hair for us Black people, um, it's something else. It's power. It's identity.
True.
So it's, yeah, and you get
Yeah.
to give us that power by
Yeah.
doing our hair. But at
Yeah.
the same time, also you hearing our stories.
True. True. True.
So
True.
yeah,
Absolutely.
just to
Mhm.
say that in your line of work, you get to meet people. So you build a community, and also you get to hear um, how people are feeling when they're low and when they're high. So just for people who sometimes take their hairstylist for granted, you guys are doing an amazing. And
Right.
yeah, just to let you know, today is International Women's Day, and you know, I appreciate you as my hairstylist,
Thank you.
always making me
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you two coming to me always. You
Thank
all.
you, Marie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
all the
you.
time. What you call.
Thank you.
Marie, when once upon a time I had to wear a wig, and Marie made me comfortable with the idea, and she was like, she had these amazing ones and she was showing me where to get it from, but also like there's that technical side, but there's also that human side of this is a person that I love, who I feel safe with, who is going to help me look my best, feel my best in this time,
Right, right.
and I trust her. The trust, the love, and that can only happen in a women's space. I mean, I'm sorry.
That's
I
true.
know
It's true.
you have, Hajj
Yes.
comes in sometimes or whoever, but
That's true.
it's the women.
That's true.
There's like a pact or something
Yes.
among women.
True. That's so true.
Where like I make you feel comfortable, you make me feel comfortable, and it's
Right.
this vibe that happens. I think
Right. Right.
it's deep
That's true.
too.
Yes, it is deep. It is deep. Yes. And it's just amazing the way hair brings women together, and share other deeper stories, and learn from each other, get advice from each other. It's just amazing. The salon is just not about beauty, it's more than beauty. Some people, sometimes I have clients, they did their hair like not even long too long ago. They would call me and tell me, oh, I want to come and do my. I'm like, you just got your hair done, what's going on? You don't like this? But you can feel that it's more than, it's not hair, it's not about hair. Sometimes they feel low, they feel down, or whatever challenges they're facing. They know that when they come to a place like that, they can, sometimes they trust me, but sometimes they want everybody's opinion because the salon is always full and stuff like that. So some people just expose and talk to other women about their problem, and everybody just give their opinion, give their, just like that. But definitely the salon place is it's a safe place for women. It's a safe place for women. Yeah.
And there's a
So-
trust. I'm sorry. I
ahead.
love
Yeah.
there's a trust also for healthcare. There's a trust that happens among
That
women,
is true. Yes. Yes.
and
That's true.
the pharmacist, the physician, the mental
Yes.
health care worker.
Yes.
There's something, and not to diss men, my husband is in healthcare, but there's something about a woman caring for a woman.
It's true.
True. Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
like an example, for example, I remember I had a patient. We were talking about the mask and the machine and all that. But she's telling me, when I put my rolls, it doesn't fit very well and all that. So I need something. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. She puts her rolls at night. Or, using the treatment, it's not very exciting and all that, and I don't want to bother my husband, and you have to kind of educate them or educate both of them also in order to accept the treatment. So you're right, you have to relate to women in a different way. The diversity that you mentioned also is important in terms of healthcare workers also. And so I like treating my patients, my immigrant women, not just Black women. Everywhere we have a different story. So it makes a difference. It's a place where it's more therapy, like Marija was saying. You feel but they get some sense of therapy as well. And you have patients who want to come back. It's true. It's not necessarily the treatment, but they want to tell you about something else that happened in their life, maybe, and they just want to share that with you. So it is a safe place for them for therapy, for social connection, and for advice, for listening, and all that. Definitely.
Well, it's true. It's true.
In spaces like salons, hair becomes much more than beauty, like we were talking about. It becomes community, a place where women exchange advice, support one another, and build confidence. In healthcare, immigrant women often seek more than treatment, they seek understanding. So, professionals like Sandrine help ensure patients feel seen, heard, and also supported in moments when care matters most. One thing I want to ask you, ladies. So let's say you could change one thing, just one thing, to advance the lives of other women, lives, rights, opportunities. What would it be?
Access to good education. I know from where I'm from, um, the school, not just the infrastructure, the content, the education, the quality of the teachers, the support from beginning to finish, even eventually. But for girls, for women, I think in general, once there's a crisis, monetary crisis, and all that happening, women are left behind. There's less women going to school, and for me, the access of good education is important.
So education, Sandrine.
Yes.
I love it.
I want to say something that might be, hear me out.
Yes.
Okay.
So education,
Yes.
but I think one of the best things for women and girls is education of men and boys.
Mhm.
It, to an education not in the traditional sense. That's not what I mean. I mean men and boys, many in our communities and around the world, need to unlearn many of the things that they have grown up with and need to learn new concepts in terms of women and girls. Unlearning patriarchal, notions, unlearning misogyny, unlearning, I think, and to me, them having to do the work makes more sense. We're tired. We are tired of having to deal and to cope and to teach
Right.
and I think it's in an ideal world. I don't know how or where this is going to happen or what men will agree to sit in classrooms or just training but I really think a lot can be done for women and girls if we addressed the men, and they were taught about the value of a girl's education so that they would, back home, many of us live in patriarchal societies where the father is the man of the house and he makes all the decisions, and the decisions in terms of whether the girl goes to school or not, when she gets married, how she gets married, to whom. We still have, we're doing much better, but I feel like we still have a lot of that to deal with. So yeah, anti-patriarchy, anti-misogyny classes for men and boys, these boys that are growing up as well. We have a big opportunity with them. They're still young. And so the men need to teach the young boys as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I couldn't agree more.
We're tired.
That's
Let
true.
them do the work. They need work. Let them do some work on themselves and let us be, because we're fine. Because a lot of the times they're the gatekeepers, right? If we're talking about education, and they're the decision makers, and a lot of them are the politicians who are heads of state, and they're the decision makers in a lot of our countries and a lot of our communities. So I say it's time they do the work.
Absolutely.
But you know what, Hannah? I feel like the younger generation are not like us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is true.
You know, they are speaking up. They are educating these men.
Mhm.
So I think things are going to change slowly, but surely.
I
Yeah,
hope so. Yep.
yeah. I think it's more women in politics now. The more women get educated, you have two people in the family that are working with the kids. I think it's very empowering when a woman is educated and then is able to have a seat at the table or able to have her own business, able to prosper, able to. We're going to be married. We're going to have children. We're going to nurture. We're going to be aunties, and all that. But it just somehow secures women so that in case you're not so lost, basically. So,
Yeah. And then for me, I think we have to really reinforce, especially for younger women, you know, uh, to be for their self-esteem, to know who they are, because I do younger women's hair, and I get to talk to them, and I see sometimes very smart girls, very, very smart girls. But then sometimes some of them have struggles, you know, and I don't know if sometimes society fails them or something. I don't know. But some of these young women, there's a lot of them that are having a lot of struggles, So I think that, we need to really, I don't know what is out there for this generation, to just some of them boost their their um, their confidence and their self-esteem, and just know who they are. I don't know if I make sense.
yeah, you
you know,
do.
You
but
Definitely.
do. You totally
yeah,
do.
it's
Yeah.
it's a lot of problems there, with women, with young women. Yeah.
Do you guys feel like it's lack of guidance? They don't know. I mean, there are so many options out there for this new generation. So, do you feel like it's lack of guidance, or it's because they have so many options that they're lost within those options? Because we have social media
Yeah.
and
And not to cut you off, and that's what I see is social media is good, don't get me wrong, but it has the negative effect on some of these kids, though. I mean, we have a whole generation that are being raised by what is out there. You
Mhm.
can, no matter what you do at home, at the end of the day, they are so exposed to what they hear at other women. One of the girls, I was telling her, you know she didn't tell me anything. I was doing her hair, but I was seeing her wash this girl that, I mean, following her, this girl. And I was listening a little bit to what the girl was saying and stuff like that. And I know her parents, I know the home she came from. But I'm like, here, the parents are at home trying their best to put her in a good condition, put her in school and stuff. And she is listening and following another woman that, to me, is not even an example for her. I'm like, what is going on in our world today? It's a challenge and it's a problem to me, you know? Yeah. Even though I know that it has a good effect, but it's a problem too with this young generation. Yeah.
Like Marie-Jo was saying, I think social media, there's a lot of good things in there, and then of course negative also. I think for women, for young girls, they have the beauty, the shape, the size, trying to look so good, so fake, so many filters, so not even real,
Exactly.
not real,
Mhm.
and it's too much. It's really too much
It
to
is.
girls. You can't reach that. It's too much. It's not even real.
Mhm.
So
No, it's not. Yeah.
so
No.
it's important to see what they're watching, to kind of bring them back. I have boys only. I don't have any girls. I don't have three boys, but always bring them back to reality. Okay, the family life, the
Mhm.
what's really important for you, whether you're
Mhm.
a boy or whether you're a girl. This is just on the side. Don't get caught up on that. It's
Yeah.
necessary
Well,
to school, to work, and all that, but don't get caught up in it.
Yeah. Thankfully, they say there's a trend now. This younger generation now is, some of them are starting to move away a little bit from the over consumption of media and social media in particular. I know my daughter just, she said she deleted her TikTok. Like there is this sense of,
Mhm.
it has become too much. Like they
Mhm.
are starting to feel it.
Yeah.
They're
Mhm.
starting to feel it mentally. They're starting
Mhm.
to feel it emotionally. That
Mhm.
constant scrolling and this constant comparing yourself to different people and the way they look and their lifestyles,
Mhm.
what I have and what you
Mhm.
have, and
Yeah.
getting this,
Mhm.
all of that.
Mhm.
There's a movement now, supposedly a little bit backwards,
Mhm.
uh, that some kids are finding it cool to start deleting
Mhm.
like an app, one of them, for example. Like,
Mm.
for me,
Mm.
I'm deleting TikTok. I like
Mm.
TikTok. I'm
Yeah.
off of TikTok, like that.
Mhm.
And another thing I was reading the other day, that Barnes and Nobles are starting to
Mhm.
come back because there's a demand in this young generation.
Mm. Wow. Wow.
And the younger generation, the alpha,
Mhm.
well, not generation alpha, but the kind of the younger Gen Zs,
Mhm.
like my younger daughter, are starting to go back to analog. So
Mm.
records and
Mm.
tapes and books.
Wow.
I don't know if it's just a fad,
Wow.
or if it's just, an overload of digital
Yes.
maybe is causing that. I don't know.
Probably. Mm.
Something is happening, but I don't know if it's real or if it's true.
well, it's a good change.
Yes.
Hopefully, it's gonna last.
Yeah, I really feel for the moms of
Yeah,
Generation Alpha right now,
I
the
know.
younger
I
ones.
know. Yes.
My daughter's one has graduated from
Yes.
university, and the second one is in second year of university.
Right.
So they're Gen Z. But this Gen Alpha,
Mm.
being a mom to that
Mhm. Mhm.
age
I know.
looks really difficult, and my
True.
heart really is with them.
Yes.
It's hard.
Right. True. True.
So,
Yeah.
since we're talking about the younger generation, let's say a young girl somewhere in the world is watching this conversation, and we're talking about them, right? So, what message would you want her to hear?
I mean, for me, it's your voice matters. Speak up. Your story matters. Sometimes the world sends messages, especially to girls, to be quiet, or to wait your turn. But storytelling, creativity, leadership, more, I would love for more girls to step into their creative sides, ask questions, be curious, share your ideas, and support other women along the way. Because I think when women lift each other up, amazing things can
True.
happen.
Yes. 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 Yeah. For me, I would say believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams, and work on yourself. and have high goals in life. I mean, anything is possible, no matter how small you begin. Just believe in yourself, trust yourself, and the rest will be okay. And wherever you find yourself living or staying at, because sometimes, um, I think about those girls who are in remote places where there is war, or there is nothing is going for them, there is no hope and stuff like that. I'm like, still believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, because even there are young girls that have dreams inside of them. Believe in you, I would
That's
say.
beautiful. That is
Yeah.
beautiful. Marie. Thank you. Sandrine?
So for me, it would be back to education again. Whatever education is, even if it's training, I want women and girls to believe in that path, believe in themselves. Um, I think it's a very strong and needed um, platform for everyone in order to succeed. Everyone doesn't have to become a doctor or whatever, but I think education is important to continue with it. And then you can make this, you can have a place you can rely on that. So I want to emphasize. There's a lot of things, but I don't want to emphasize on education. Take what education deserves.
Yes.
Thank you. Education is important. And I can see that you are a big advocate of education. So we need people like you.
I think it's important, especially in Africa. I know I look at just Ivory Coast and all that, and I want the kids to, to succeed, to perform. The percentage of the active population in Africa is so high. It's really, and we want to make sure that our kids are well educated, not just in schools and all that. They get the education that they need, basically, and then support them. So I'm a big proponent of that.
To every young girl watching today, believe in your voice, trust your creativity, keep learning, build your skills, and pursue your passions. Every step you take strengthens not only your future, but the future of your community. A message that my guest today shared with us. So, ladies, one last question, and I'll let you go. So, we're talking about the younger generation. Now, what I want to know is if there is a woman in the diaspora or maybe in Africa who has inspired you or whose work is making a difference in their community, but also in your life.
For me personally, I would say my mother,
Oh.
my mom. I mean, when I was young, I didn't appreciate my mom like I do now, because I understand, I'm a mother myself, and I see the sacrifice that my mom has done through the years, when we were young. Because my mom, we were a family of 8. And I have an aunt that passed away when I was young, and she passed away, her husband passed, so they have 6 kids. So when the family was wondering what would they gonna do with the kids, my mom said she was gonna take them all in. She took them. And I'm not talking about other people's kids who are struggling or going to school in our area that was living with us. And I mean, it was just, today, when I think about it, I'm like, how did she do it? And when I think about every single one of us who were in that house is doing very well in life. You know, I can still hear my mom's voice, you know, on certain things. It's unbelievable. Even like 3 years ago, she came to visit me. She was still teaching me certain things, you know, and I see through her life, my mom, she was the first entrepreneur that I know, you know. Yeah. She had her own little business going. She always had money with her. She was not broke. I mean, even she wasn't rich though. But my mom always had something going. She always had money hidden somewhere. You know, sometimes you ask, she would tell you, I don't have it, I don't have it. And after she would come back and ask you, what do you want to do? And she would ask you all these questions. And sure enough, she'll come back with something. And she will give you whatever you are asking for and stuff. I mean, my mom, definitely. I am who I am today because of my mother, you know, and I want to give her honor. She passed a couple of months ago. I want to give her honor for what she has done. She has touched many lives, many, many lives, many lives. And I appreciate my mother. I just wanted to say that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, Marie.
Thank you.
So for me, I have multiple women that shaped my life. Marie-Jo being one of them. You know, I have to give Marie-Jo definitely as a best friend, as a sister. You know, but I have my aunt. So I have my mom. I have my moms, I should say. But I have an aunt, and she lives in Los Angeles, Geneviève. And she has always guided me, you know, whether it's marital problems or maybe in life. Always. So for me, it would be my aunt, definitely. She has been a strong presence in my life, and over my life, she has really guided me. And it has worked well, even when I didn't want to listen for some little things.
Always.
She was right. So a very strong woman also, and the impact in her community also back home. And so definitely, yes. So for me, it would be my aunt. And you know her, Marie-Jo, Auntie Geneviève.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, our mothers and aunties are the ones. They're the ones. I mean,
Yes.
I look to my mother. She is somebody I look up to because the strength of the women who left their villages and towns and
Yes.
their countries and lived elsewhere at young ages, like my mother left, they were here in the 70s. So they got married, they moved to Saudi Arabia for like a year, had me, and came to the US in the 70s. 70s United States was not an easy place to be in for people who are Black or African. And she did it, you know, and she made it, and she created a life here. And to me, that resilience, I don't know if I could have done that, right? But that resilience of migration, immigration at a time that was, you know, the communications were not like now, right? I remember her telling me, we were on a video call the other day, just a WhatsApp call, and something about food. And then she said, you know, when I was a young woman in the US, the only way I could contact my mother was letters, because the phone, it was a whole deal to get the phone. You
Yes.
call the operator, and the
Yes.
operator connects you, and it might connect and it might not connect.
True.
And a minute is, I don't know how many dollars. It was expensive.
It was.
Back home there, they would get everybody to be in one house where the phone was, so that when my mom calls, everybody would come in that house. It was difficult, right? So my mom's generation, it was letters, It was cassette tapes. I don't know if anybody remembers this.
Oh no. Letters too. I remember writing letters. I remember.
I
You
remember.
know? They used to record cassette tapes.
Right.
You know, hey, how's it going? Assalamu alaikum. How are you? How is so-and-so? And how is so-and-so? And how is so-and-so? And they would mail the tapes.
Right. Yes.
It was,
Amazing.
we can't imagine that today. And they must have been so lonely.
Yes.
And they must have, it must have been such a struggle. And so to be resilient, to overcome that, and to have children, and to raise them well, outside of your country, away from your mom, away from your that is strength to me. That's the epitome of strength. So my mom.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
So much, ladies, for sharing your journeys with us. And today we'll celebrate our mothers, our aunties, our sisters. And I celebrate you, my sisters, for being here, sharing these precious moments with me. So appreciate it.
One more last thing that I wanted to say. Like we were saying that we learn from our aunts, our mothers, and but two, we learn from each other too, because it's like a continuation. What we didn't learn from our mother, I can learn from Hana, I can learn from Sandrine, I can learn from Georgette and other women.
Yes.
So it's just amazing how we just influence and then help each other, to just better our lives or whatever the case may be.
Even this feels so warm.
It is. It does.
This space that you created, Georgette.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Amazing. Amazing.
Before we close, I want to take a moment to speak directly to the women watching today, wherever you are, whatever path you are walking, whether you are building something, raising a family, leading a community, pursuing a dream, or simply trying to find your way. Your voice matters. Your work matters. Your presence in this world matters. Progress does not happen overnight, but every step forward, every act of courage, every idea, every effort contributes to a larger story. So today, we celebrate you. I celebrate you, your strength, your resilience, your dreams. And we look forward to the future that women everywhere continue to shape. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining the GeoLens Show. And to women everywhere, happy International Women's Day.